by Steve Austin.
Chapter 23. A healing, a feeling, a departing lot, and a sinister plot. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, the 28th day of Dharma, and we find Shania, Mathila, and Danine toiling heavily in the Ministry of Rejuvenation. They were trying to contrive language to reverse the effects of Ducelin and restore mobility to Parthis.
Paralis reverse totalis Parthis,
Shania exclaimed with one hand raised toward the ceiling and the other on Parthis's forehead. Several moments of silence ensued before Shania asked,
Anything now, Parthis?
A tingling in my feet and lower legs, but I still can't move them. Nothing up top this time.
Shit. Perhaps we should focus on just the upper extremities instead of the entire body. Give me a moment.
Shania closed her eyes and furrowed her brow as she searched her mind and spirit to retrieve the verbiage that might free Parthis from his misery. She opened her eyes, lifted both hands, and proclaimed,
Reverse paralis, proximae elevatae Parthis. Now wait a moment, Parthis, and then try wiggling your fingers and raising your arms.
Parthis relaxed for a minute or so, then complied with Shania's instruction.
Well, you can see the fingers on my left hand are twitching, but that's all I can muster. Nothing at all on my right side.
Shania was baffled. This verbiage should produce more of a result than what Parthis was experiencing. Mathila looked on the two of them with a marked sense of both sympathy and despair. They had been at this for over 2 hours with little to show for their efforts.
Darling, have you ever had this much trouble with a spell since you became a contributory?
No. Up until now, spells have come to me without my even thinking about the wording. This is a puzzlement, to say the least.
Perhaps you are thinking about it too much. Maybe if you just let go and say whatever presents itself in your spirit, you will receive the correct language.
Shania stepped back from Parthis's bedside and reached for the flagon containing the Milanon mixed with Marfo milk that Darkinum had given her, and she took a couple of short draws. She walked back to Parthis's bedside and stood with both palms toward the ceiling and her eyes closed. She stood for several minutes in silence. Then she opened her eyes and turned toward Mathila and said,
This is so damned frustrating. Nothing is coming to me, either mentally or spiritually. I don't understand.
Danine spoke up at this point.
Dearie, I have been watching and listening to you two for about the last half hour, and I am no contributory, but it seems to me you may be approaching this from the wrong perspective. You seem to be assembling your verbiage as if you are trying to reverse a spell, but that is not what you are attempting here. You are trying to undo the effect of a chemical. Instead of speaking to the paralysis, try speaking to the Ducelin and persuade it to release its hold on Parthis's brain and nerve center. Remember your incantation to relieve Cephas's issue of blood on the dock that day. Did you speak to the condition, or did you speak to the various elements of his physicality that were affected by the injuries he suffered?
That's it, Auntie Danine. Thank you so much.
And with that, Shania stepped to the foot of Parthis's bed, knelt on the floor, raised both fists skyward, and began to meditate. As she did, 2 white halos encircled her fists, faint at first, but increasing with intensity with each passing second, until the light emanating from the foretold's hands was near blinding. As the luminescence projecting from her hands reached white-out levels of intensity, she suddenly seized both of Parthis's feet and proclaimed,
Demitis tu salis, in captae totalis quetirae, hyporia, aia hipae, ia membra partis.
Translation. Ducelin, release your hold upon Parthis' extremities, both upper and lower. The halos now encircled both Shania and Parthis. They were so bright that all in the ministry were forced to both close their eyes and cover them with their hands. As the light slowly dissipated and the luminescence in the room returned to normal, all eyes turned to Parthis, whose hands were still over his eyes. Mathila and Danine both rose from their seats and wrapped Shania in a tight embrace, which the 3 of them held for nearly an entire minute. Parthis raised both hands into the posturing of a shrug and said,
Hey, what the hell are you 3 so emotional about over there?
Then he noticed his posturing and began to laugh heartily. The other 3 joined him in his moment of joyous revelry. and as they stood relishing in the success of the spell Shania had cast, Parthis began to try to rise from his bed. But Shania scolded him lightly.
No, 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 no. Do not attempt to stand on your own yet. You have been bedfast long enough for your legs to have suffered atrophy. If you stand now, you will likely fall on your ass. Let me summon the healers, and they can begin your therapy immediately. And I am sure you will be back to normal in a few days' time.
Mathila was already at Parthis's bedside, and had wrapped him in a tight, loving embrace. She was weeping joyously, as was Parthis himself. Danine said,
I shall go and locate Dinari, Rantine, and Tanea, as they will want to share in this with you.
Magda tapped lightly on the door of Minerva's study. She needed to inform her palatar and lover that her awaited guests had arrived. Magda addressed her formally, as the other aspect of their relationship was not yet public.
Madam Palatar, your guests are here and await you in the small parlor.
Show them in, Magda. We shall meet and discuss our business here in the study.
Yes, milady.
And Magda left the study and returned in a matter of seconds with Minerva's guests in tow. Minerva greeted them.
Ah yes, Nerub, magistrate of Athersinth and his loyal deputy Pontarus. Please come in and make yourselves comfortable. Magda, bring our guests each a flagon of Marfo draft. I believe you gentlemen will enjoy our native brew, both stout and tasty. Now, what brings two high officers of the court all the way to the distillery?
Nerub answered.
Right to business straight away, just as the Minister prefer. But to answer your question, the distillery and the High Court at this point in time share a mutual problem, and the four magistrates, as well as the court itself, including the Justice Supreme, feel that it may benefit both races if the Minister and the witches collaborate in finding a solution.
Minerva chuckled lightly before responding.
Does this particular problem stand 6.5 feet tall, have stained glass wings, a beautiful face and gorgeous body, a half-breed father, and a penchant for being a pain in the ass to those she should actually be subservient to?
Nerub and Pontarus both smiled wryly, and Nerub answered,
Indeed, yes, she is a heretic and an abomination, and since she refuses to bow to her superiors, needs to be terminated as soon as possible before she creates more of a disturbance than she already has.
So what exactly are the Minista's ideas on how to subdue and eliminate Shania? You are aware at this point in time she is the most powerful mage walking erosion soil. I'm not afraid of the task, I relish in it, but are the Minister prepared for such a fight as what is about to ensue?
Forgive my candor, but the Minister have proven that magic is but a facade perpetuated on the populace in order to—
Don't you dare come into my home, attempting to spread your worthless Minister propaganda. If you wish to make an alliance with the distillery, then the first thing you must do is drop the fucking bullshit Minister creed and embrace reality. If you did not fear Shania's mage, you would not be sitting in my study right now, listening to me school you on just how erroneous your doctrine is.
At that point, Magda entered carrying a tray with the liquid refreshments her palatar had ordered for her guests.
Thank you, Magda. Stay within earshot in the event I should need to summon you for any reason. Now, gentlemen, where was I? Ah, yes. Shania. Regardless of the foolhardy tidbit of Minister doctrine you tried to peddle just now, you must understand that fire must be fought with fire. If you were capable of defeating Shania by falling into Splendetta and dazzling her with your precious Minister logic and reason, then you would have done so and saved yourself a hike halfway across Aeros to meet with the palatar. Because in spite of how you deny that fact, in an attempt to stay in line with your pathetic belief system, you are full aware that to defeat Shania, you will need to align yourself with those who possess mage on par with that of the foretold, or as close to it as possible. So, gentlemen, yes, we do both seek to extinguish the light of the foretold, but the question is, do I really need your help in doing so? Tell me, gentlemen, just what is it the Minister and its High Court bring to the table?
After putting Parthis in the good hands of the healers and departing the Ministry of Rejuvenation, Shania made her way to her suite, where she found Darkinum there, waiting for her. They had become entangled in another of their insult-swapping sessions, after Darkinum mistook a statement Shania had made concerning her family.
That's not what I said, Dar. What I said was my spirit tells me that my family may soon experience a shake-up that could prove good or ill. Or perhaps even both. I never said anything about mother and father having problems as a couple. If I've said this once, I've said it 1,000 times. You really do need to clean the troll shit out of your ears.
Making fun of my ears? Are you sure you want to go there? When those bat wings sticking out from the sides of your head are so big I could tie a string around your neck and fly you like a kite? You know, if you could learn to wiggle those things fast enough, you wouldn't need your wings anymore. And I'll bet you generate enough earwax to make candles for every room in this castle. And I would wager that you could hear a gnat fart in Black Mountain with those things.
Be that as it may, the only thing I hear at the moment is a whiny little normalpuss complaining because he doesn't understand his native tongue any better than the troll that shit in his ears.
How do you even fly with those things protruding from your head like they do? Isn't wind resistance an issue? Or do you use them as rudders? Or do they retract when you're airborne? Or what about when you were born of your mother? Did they pose?
All right, asshole. That's about enough. It ceased to be funny after the gnat fart bit.
Okay, I'm sorry, Nea. You know I find those elven spritish protrusions to be adorable.
I know, Dar, I know. It's when you stop fucking with me in that manner that I will begin to doubt your love for me.
I'll never stop loving you, Longshanks. Therefore, worry not. I shall be fucking with you for many years to come.
Shania giggled a bit.
I shall look forward to it with a pronounced sense of anticipation, my love. But to expound on what I was trying to explain to your hard-headed gnomish ass before you went on your tangent concerning my ears, I can hear the footsteps upon the earth's surface of the entity that will bring forth the turbulence to my family dynamic that I alluded to, approaching even as we speak. It does not seem malicious in any way. It seems to be consumed with a certain benevolent longing. But something about the nature of its relationship to us could prove to be a detriment, or a benefit to our family's countenance. Or as I said while you were digging the troll poo out of your ears, perhaps a bit of both.
How can something both help and hurt a situation all at the same time?
Stop assuming everything must always be cut and dry, Dar. Every situation can have a certain grey area. Everything isn't always black and white. What is a positive for one can always be considered a negative for another, depending on many factors, perception perhaps being the foremost.
So, you are saying that whenever this person or thing arrives, it will be a blessing to some and a curse to others? Some will be delighted while others offended, even to the point of being pissed off?
When you said that, a chill ran up my spine, Dar. I think you may have fucked around and tripped over an insight into the situation.
Well, does your foretold-ish sixth sense have any inkling as to just how severe an effect the arrival of this entity will have upon you and yours? Or us and ours, as the case may well be?
I suppose the mere fact that my senses even perceive of it can be taken to mean the effect could in fact be quite profound.
Shitcakes. We need another complication thrown into the current situation about as much as we need our asses flayed raw and salt rubbed into the bloody welts.
Yes. I suppose you are indeed correct in that assumption, my dear. Blessings inherent. Oh well, nothing for it at this point but to await its arrival and see what we shall see at that point.
Meanwhile, back at the distillery, Nerub clutched tightly at the lapels of his jacket, offended by the severe scolding the Palatar had just laid upon him. Offended more so by the fact that every word she had said was true than he was at the scolding itself. He, and the High Court, had indeed already deemed that the Mage of the Foretold was indeed a force to be reckoned with, a force that the Minister in and of themselves could not overcome. Why Nerub had chosen to make the bold yet erroneous statement upholding the High Court's doctrine of Minister superiority and the illegitimacy of the practice of magic he could not exactly determine. A mistake, to be sure. But he must now swallow his amplified Minista pride, admit his pomposity in making that statement, beg the Palatar's forgiveness, and then answer her question as to exactly what the High Court did bring to the table. Nehru began.
My dear Palatar, please accept my apologies for the bold statement concerning the High Court's stance on magic I made earlier. As you pointed out, were that statement true, I would indeed not be sitting in your study right now. But to answer your question, what the court brings to the table is a plan. A plan to perhaps place the foretold in a position in which she will have no choice but to surrender to you.
Okay, you have my attention. What is this plan of which you speak?
Well, as you have already pointed out, the foretold's mage is so formidable at this point, subduing her is nigh on to impossible.
But
suppose we subdue someone so dear to her she would be willing to give herself up to gain their freedom.
And whom would you kidnap? Auntie Denine, the Lady Renata, the Lord Oddicombe. Any of those three would be nearly as difficult to take as would Shania herself.
indeed. But perhaps even more dear to Shanea's heart is that despicable runt, Darkinum. If we could take and imprison the little gnomish bastard and threaten to murder him unless she surrenders herself to you.
Son of a bitch, why did I not think of that? Apparently the Minista logic and reason is a force to be reckoned with after all. What can the Disselry do to aid you, my good Minista?
The horses stamped their hooves into the turf in anticipation of the journey they could sense was forthcoming. Considering the short period of time they had to do so, the Ganarinese and Tanisians had assembled a rather large force to ride forth in the defense of Aeros. As the mayors of each township had understood the impending danger should Minerva and her forces succeed in subduing Aeros, and had contributed as generously as they possibly could to the sortie that was gathered this morning. Gribinus sat upon Daz, and his daughter Griselda sat aside him on Pinoche, the horses they had owned and ridden for almost a decade. Beside them sat Tremont, on a beautiful white stallion named Chase. Aside from soldiers, each township had also contributed horses, weapons, armor, food, and other supplies, and gold to cover any expense that the sortie might incur on the road between Siege, where they now stood, and Boniscus, their destination. No leader for the expedition had been officially named, but all gathered pretty much considered Tremont, Gribinus, and Griselda to be in charge of this particular assemblage of cavalry. Gribinus addressed the sortie.
Fellow Tunisians, today we embark upon an errand of both goodwill to our neighbors in Aeros and the necessity to preserve our own way of life. The heretic witch and her horde of ogre and elf must not succeed in their bid to rule Aeros. So we ride. We ride to aid the Aerosians in keeping their own country free, and we ride to assure ourselves we have done what we must in order to preserve the liberty of our own precious Tanis. We ride because it is the right thing to do and the only thing to do.
Tremont then took the floor.
If we ride with purpose and limit our rest stops, we should arrive in Pandana, the gnomish capital, just before sunset. Whether we seek refuge in an inn for the night or camp under stars and moon is a decision we shall make along the way. With an early departure, we should see Boniscus by mid-afternoon. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, war has been officially declared in Aeros. Therefore, we must consider ourselves always to be under threat of attack. Both the ogres and the elves are fond of setting up ambushes, and although we do hold a slight advantage in the fact that they don't know we are coming, we still must remain on the alert at all times. We would likely do well to leave the road and find an alternate route as we pass Pinigri, the capital of the Bartanes. But after that we should find the road more inviting as we near the edge of Penichery Forest and Pandana. Griselda?
12 centuries ago, the Bartane elves believed themselves to have made the Ganayaranese extinct. Soon we shall reveal to them just how erroneous they were in that assumption. We ride not in pursuit of revenge, we ride to initiate a reckoning. Any race which deems itself to be above all others is a race which must be subdued and neutralized. So today we ride. We ride to institute a reckoning upon Minerva. We ride to institute a reckoning upon Zephyrs. We ride to institute a reckoning upon Scrog. We ride to preserve the freedom of the people of Aeros. We ride to preserve the freedom of the people of Tanis. We ride to ensure liberty is not compromised. As we depart here to begin our quest to protect the sovereignty of these two nations, may the blessings inherent encompass us all and guide us safely through this campaign.